Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crosse Commission Podcast. My name is Saif Fakadu. On the other line with me is Jake Nazar. Jake, how you doing, man? Tis the season, so it's starting to feel a little bit like Christmas. I'm already starting to see lights up. You know, obviously the stores flipped right after Halloween. So
Safe. You know my policy. This is a Thanksgiving household.
I am a fan. I think we've talked about this ad nauseum in the chat, probably in the pod. I'm such a big fan of the late Thanksgiving because I want Thanksgiving right into December, like just get right into it that next Monday or that very next week. The Thanksgivings where you have the Thanksgiving, but there's still a whole extra week of November.
Well, this year especially because it's it's basically just like a 3-week December.
Oh yeah.
Then you're right. With Wednesday Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't obviously a fellow state worker, like that. The Veterans Day, Election Day. I like having a little bit of a gap because I was like, I don't need another 2 days off, a week later. This is like space it out and then close out in November with a nice little 4-day weekend. But no, I'm with you. Yeah, again, no one forgets Thanksgiving.
Some people do, man. Some people just they just
American holiday. I mean, aside, I guess Christmas a little bit because Americans such a consumerist economy and stuff like that. But food and football is like right up there. I was like, shopping, food, and football probably interchangeable. Whatever.
Speaking of the games this year are horrible. I don't know what it is, but you got Giants Cowboys. Oh Lord, I mean, have some shame. It's Dolphins Packers. Oh, the Bears aren't feeling. Yeah, I mean, goodness, that's games this year. It's not good.
There's so many Giants fans in my office, and I rarely make jokes. I save them for the pod and for the chat. As my mom says, save sometimes you're not as funny as you think you are. Probably not a good idea to say jokes. But whenever the Giants play the Eagles, and there's been a great run this last few years, especially if it's a lopsided score, I'll tell somebody like, oh, yeah, somebody called from extension 283, and they're like 283. I was like, oh yeah, 28-3, and they're like, what are you saying? And it was like the Monday after that 28-3 loss, or like, oh, someone told you to call. Could you call 28 minutes to 3 o'clock? They're like 28 minutes to 3, and then they realize it, and then they're like, just like, don't talk to me. But I got my comeuppance because a few of the people in the office are Mets fans, so they were taking a lot of glee.
Giants Mets usually isn't the.
No, there's the big executive at the office. She's Mets Giants, which is definitely. But pretty much everyone else in the office is a Giants fan, is a Yankees fan. So, but there's just a few Jets, Mets, and like I said, that one Jets, Mets, Giants fan. Yeah, so our teams are playing tonight. Aren't you? You're a Commander fan, right? I would assume, even though Baltimore.
Yeah, back on board, baby. We were as if you're listening to this, I assume we were gonna do this live, but tech difficulties got the better of us, so we had to just just roll with it as per usual. And the reason we were going early was because there's truly the most shocking thing to occur in 2024. The Washington Commanders are playing an important November football game.
For first place. Absolutely.
First place. And it's against Safe's Eagles. So we were trying to get it under the gun, especially because it's on it's on Prime. What was it? Thursday night, so it's on Prime. And those Prime video games, the if you don't get in there like before the game starts, like you're watching that game like it's 1995. It's like 240p. Like you're trying to get through the scrambled signal.
Oh, jeez. I was gonna say I've been watching a little bit. This one, for some reason, I guess they are simulcasting it on the local Fox affiliate. But I love your point about like how the boomer generation has adopted Peacock. So like the move from what is the streaming stuff to like, oh, I know where this is right away. But seeing the evolution in streaming.
Yeah, I feel like it's whatever, I remember watching Seinfeld the last couple of days. I feel like whatever which one carries Seinfeld, it's probably what the olds are subscribed to at that one time. Wasn't Seinfeld on Peacock for a minute?
They got back The Office. I remember.
I remember that. That was crazy.
Yeah.
The Office, yeah.
So many people lost their minds when they're like, "The Peacock."
That was nuts.
I love the outrage at Peacock because like they give it to you for free if you're a Comcast subscriber. So I'm definitely like Marie Antoinette, just like I'm just watching on Peacock. What's the big deal? Like that got it right here.
I wonder what Peacock's gonna. What is their big thing right now that they have?
They got a bone with the Olympics, right? That was a somewhat.
That was good. That was good. Yeah.
For them, that's a win.
That was good. I like that.
They got to do the merch. I told you, Jake. I'm the canary in the coal mine. It was too decadent for me. I just had to unsubscribe like everything. Right now, I got the Peacock because it comes through. Tubi for the streets, but that's because it's free. Prime because of Prime delivery.
Yeah.
And I'm just massively. I don't know who said it's probably one. I don't think Rogan, but somebody like that type of podcast, and it made an interesting point that like YouTube may just be, at the end just be the one that eats them all, because really like Google's not paying money to like produce shows on YouTube. The average person can get to YouTube just by as long as they have an internet connection. And the amount of, we always talk about Apple. I was like, I kind of feel bad for them because I just have such a Apple thing that I'll never get Apple TV. But like they're pouring all this money into Apple shows, and it's just like I don't think like anybody's watching. I was like, eventually they're gonna have to like.
Oh my god!
I mean, that's what Prime did. They were just throwing money around, even Netflix, and they're kind of everything's like cutting back a little.
Somebody mentioned it. The number of people who do like the number of like famous actors lately who have done these just like Apple or Amazon shows that no one watches. It's insanity. It's like Morgan Freeman's on a TV show. Like, it's like that. Like, what? I've never heard of before. If you told me this 10 years ago, it'd be like, be insane. I guess the reason I was asking is because Netflix feels like they're getting into the live sports thing. And because I feel like that's the next frontier really for these things is because all cable has left really is live sports. And I mean, goodness, the NBA ratings are down significantly this year, which that makes that NBC contract look. I mean, at least, I don't know what they're gonna do with that to start, but I mean, look, I said it. I mean, I know people lambasted Warner Brothers for it when it happened, and I mean, listen, fair, it's Warner Brothers, but like that deal that NBC signed was freaking insanity. Like what they were there, paying double what Warner did for half the inventory, and now the ratings are down. And I mean, I don't know how long the deal was, but you got probably 3 more years of LeBron and Steph, and who knows after that. So, but like that feels, like if they can get live sports on the streaming services, that feels like just what their future is. It's not these, I mean, if they want to be able to survive, basically the streaming services, because it's like the era, obviously, the binge, like Netflix thing, like the era of like the binge, that stuff's long been gone. But Netflix feels like it's leaning into, the live sports. Obviously, they got WWE on starting in January, and I think honestly, eventually they'll just wind up taking all of that. Which I know now, for now, a lot of it's on Peacock. But honestly, I think eventually they'll just take. I mean, maybe they won't. I don't know, but it feels like that's the most natural sort of spot for it to be, is for them to just take all of it. So if Netflix winds up taking that, like off of Peacock, which Peacock mainly has it because of the contract NBC Universal has with WWE, and Netflix has one now. That makes sense to me. That's what I think probably winds up happening. And Netflix starts to get into, I know other like Max has tried doing live sports, and but I mean, what are they doing with like soccer? Like, I mean, and not like any like of the significant ones.
Paramount, they do that, right?
Paramount has done some. Netflix is the one who feels like they can do it, because they still have the broad reach, and if they can get, and then it's up to, I guess, maybe what, I don't know, ESPN, something, what they can kind of finagle with Disney or Hulu, I guess, with some sort of, package. But that feels like the future. I don't like MLS, for example, was a good, like, I don't think the idea was bad with Apple. I just think the problem was doing it on Apple, where it was too isolated. Like, I thought about buying the MLS package because like I wanted to watch it, but then I'm like, what else am I using this for? I don't use Apple for anything else. So the idea of buying the MLS for Apple, where like, I don't use it for anything else, was just like, no, like like it didn't make, I didn't think the idea was terrible in a sense. But it was too isolated, where on Apple, like Apple doesn't show any other sports. It needs to be on something like Peacock maybe, where you get the Premier League, and so anyhow, that was just a version. But yeah, I think that's I think that's that feels like the next move for a lot of these is who can most efficiently produce the live sports. And maybe Amazon's obviously Amazon's going to be competitive in that too, because I mean they've got the NFL now, and as long as if you got the NFL and in the NFL, you're in business. And they're obviously, like you said, everybody's kind of got Amazon to a degree because of Prime delivery and all that. So
actually, kind of a tie into our conversations we have for the last few weeks. This is a quick, I guess, announcement. Just we're going to probably just we're gonna pause the Patreon. Nothing's stopping. We're going to still pod and everything. But we're going to try to invest more into YouTube. Obviously, today was a bit of a
great night to announce.
Surprise!
We are pivoting to the thing that we're not able to, successfully do this evening.
Yeah, it's happening though. We have concepts of a plan, of a YouTube plan, but So
all complaints, questions, queries can be forwarded to @RyanMcD29.
Executive producer Ryan McDonald. But so like essentially, if you are subscribed now, you just won't get charged anymore because we're going to do it before December, so before the next billing cycle. I don't think people can join who are new, but if you're already a member, you won't lose what you have access to, but you just won't get charged. We're still going to have the free audio pod via Podomatic. You can also find that on Spotify. And like I said, we're going to try to do more of the YouTube live broadcasts during the season. More like Saturday night. It was kind of a success. So we're going to kind of move that. So again, nothing's, our lovely faces aren't going anywhere in our beautiful voices. But it's going to just be, on Spotify or Podomatic for audio.
Apple, wherever the podcasts are now.
Yeah, wherever you can get your podcast. And YouTube, we're going to just try to go pivot the video all the way in. We're gonna probably try to put this up the video onto YouTube later as well. But yeah, just a quick announcement. Nothing huge. We're so rocking and rolling for the seasons, but just wanted to give everyone a heads up.
Yeah.
But
everyone who, if you subscribe now, if you subscribe at any point, thank you. You know, it will, you know, it. We are incredibly grateful for the fact that you give us your money. No other way to say that. I think a combo of one, we weren't the Patreon interface, and there's other things you could use, but I mean, and just the busyness of our schedules, what is required to do that, combined with what we are able to do, just didn't really mesh up anymore. Which does not mean that we're not, like, you will still get a podcast during the season. Like, you'll still get me and Safe doing a podcast every, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, previewing the games. You will, as Safe said, we really love doing the Wednesday shows, or not, pardon me, the weekend recap shows, on Saturdays and things like that. Maybe ideally our plan is, that maybe we can, start maybe doing more and more of them, on YouTube in the future, and just growing, kind of, because we like the dynamic of doing it live. We like people, participating, and when we, consider it, that's the way a lot of this stuff is leaning right now online, is people doing things, on YouTube, and, the interaction, and that, like, that's always what we've been about, is, the interaction with, you guys, listeners. So it fits us in that, in that respect. So we want to, do more of that. So, like, in the future, the podcasts we do, very well may be, like the Wednesday shows might be on YouTube as well. You'll still get it as a podcast. Like, if you still want to listen to it later, we'll still upload it. It just, might be, if you're, free and you want to come hang out, and listen to it live as well, we'll do that. And, maybe do more. We did the, the watch alongs type thing, during the season a little bit, really enjoyed doing that. It's a great opportunity for our takes to age very well. So, but yeah, it's, just, I mean, we've been around long enough that we've made multiple of these changes by this point. The first one from when we, switched from, the website to, the Patreon, and doing the Patreon was, one, trying to monetize it, because, we had been getting money from the website and SB Nation and all that. That's not as much of a priority at this point. We're when we did the website, we had how many, people? I mean, at one point, we had a dozen kind of people, bouncing around with us. Now it's just like 3 or 4 of us. So, it's a smaller group now, less people to worry about. Monetizing isn't as much. If we get to the point again where monetizing is a possibility, fantastic. But
shout out Adam Smith. We're capitalists.
And we're never gonna, say no to people throwing, a couple bucks our way here or there or anything. We're incredibly grateful. But and a couple things we've seen, the thing people come to us for, are ultimately kind of these podcasts, and how we, the banter. I've enjoyed doing some of the writing, but frankly, on it, it's hard. Like, it's just find it,
job too. Yeah, no, it's hard.
It's hard, and also it's challenging, especially doing that. It's a little derivative too, because I always tried to find something that we didn't already cover during the pod, and it, that's a challenge. Especially us, like, because look, you guys know it. We can go for these for forever. And we can go on, and we can just talk and talk and talk. And so and we try and cover as much as possible. So when we do that, then we go for 2 hours on the pod, and then I'm like, all right, what am I going to write about? And it's, it's Thursday, evening, and the time frame as well. I always, wanted to get it out for people, at a certain time, and often I'd run to getting it out Saturday morning, and it's, it just became kind of a challenge that just it didn't quite fit us to a degree, but we had fun with it. The first year we did it, honestly, I think we got to like 40 something subscribers, which and incredible. Again, 40 something people paying us $6, $7, $8 a month. Just God bless. Look,
America was always great, Jake.
This is a challenge. Like ask anybody who's in this, lacrosse media. I mean, look, ask anybody who's on these, these, I don't know, whatever they call it, content creation, media ecosystem, whatever on the internet. These things are hard in general. For lacrosse, I'm sure if you ask anybody, who does this, that it's hard. And so, but yeah, that's kind of filibustering. But be that as it may, we appreciate everybody. We're not going anywhere. We've been around a long time, and we're grateful for the presence that we have. We're grateful for the niche that we've been able to carve out, and the opportunities we've been able to have. And we're going to keep on rolling, doing what we're doing, just in a more, in ways that we think are just, easier for everybody, that kind of likes listening to us. So still be on Twitter. Maybe we'll, set up I think everybody can sign up to Blue Sky now. So maybe I'll set up an account over there too. We'll still be we're on YouTube, and you can still catch us on all the podcasts. So,
yeah, you know my stance, Jake. No more social media. I'm going backwards. I'm just gonna start texting you.
We have
email you.
We have to.
Jake, I hope this email finds you well.
Save just emailing the group. Save just like emails about the games. Gentlemen, what a fine game this evening.
Get an AOL.com account. Just start sending it.
They're just sending faxes through. Friends, what a game at Homewood today. Save sending a Sunday morning fax after a Saturday afternoon game at Homewood. Friends, what a day it was.
It's hot.
Oh, man.
You know what? Speaking of games, Jake, where are the schedules? Where are the schedules? This is kind of an Ask Us Anything pod. This was my question, the contribution to the group. Before we jump into it real quick, I did find something that I thought on point. It was an article in the Princetonian that it was actually on point specifically, because it was like, hey, where are these schedules coming up? I'll put this link in the post that we put November 7th from the Princetonian, Doug Schwartz with the article. But it noted that for Princeton, Ivy League, and other non-Big Four teams, that because of the conference realignments recently, that this essentially made it much more difficult to find games. They kind of focus a lot on head coach Jen Cook of the women's lacrosse team. And this is a quote right from the article. For sports like lacrosse, scheduling high-quality opponents is paramount, and conference realignment has complicated this process. This is from Coach Jen Cook. It was probably the most difficult, most challenging scheduling out-of-conference year that I've had in my 17 years as a coach. It definitely has to do with the conference realignment and conference expansion primarily. While scheduling for lacrosse normally starts around November and ends around June, this season the schedule wasn't finalized until September. Again, from Cook, this year it was really down to the wire. For us, there are always historical matchups that we like to play. That's your UVAs, Loyolas, Penn State, and Maryland. Unfortunately, this year, a date to play Maryland did not mesh for us. So, yeah, it's kind of like, probably the byproduct of what we've talked about a lot, conference realignment. But, that's from the women's coach at Princeton. I'm sure like other, not lacrosse teams, men and women that are not in some of the larger conferences. Maybe that's can explain why there's been a dearth of schedules released. I know BU just released theirs today, pretty much similar to last year. They do have top flight out of conference games against Yale and Duke and Brown to an extent. So good to see them up, putting them up. But yeah, Jake, the last couple of years I've been taking a trip down to Georgetown to see my buddy, kind of focusing around lacrosse games. So we got to wait for the Hoyas to drop their schedule to maybe Notre Dame comes into town or something. I can come down for that game. But just been 2 weeks from the Thanksgiving, and it's really only like 8 men's lacrosse schedules out. Just definitely feels like just waiting for the shoe to drop or something. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on it. But yeah, I just found that article was kind of timely because we've been talking about where are these schedules at.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had comments kind of suggest telling us about people, and it's all fair. People looking for a game, the usual kind of challenges, and it's fair. It's just normally this has not been more. Most schools have kind of ironed things out by this point. In the we were throwing around our DMs, like maybe is that our coaches kind of just getting a little more frustrated by the TV reschedulings and stuff. Because usually with lacrosse, the TV schedule always comes after. So you'll have, teams might schedule a game for Saturday. That's usually just like the default, but then a TV might come in, Big Ten, maybe they'll reschedule for Sunday, which is always a challenge, for, teams playing on a Sunday. Maybe, so they clearly want to wait with that. I don't think this would be the case. Like, coming out of, because 2021 was, with the first, after COVID, it was kind of conference only schedules and things like that. So, and most scheduling agreements are on 2 year, or 2 years. So most scheduling agreements, you figure if they were picked up, would be like 22, 23. And then if they were continued, be maybe 24, 25. So I figured we'd be in like the second year of scheduling agreements. I don't think scheduling agreements would be ending. In that, like right now, I mean, that would be a reason I could like maybe think of, is if like there's a lot more, kind of like agreements and games between teams that are just like done. And so that means like there's just more open games, and like teams are, kind of scheduling more. I think the conference realignment one is interesting in a sense. I mean, you do have, lacrosse, women's lacrosse is more of a challenge because you've got like some of those Pac-12 schools moving in, men's lacrosse, not as much. But maybe that's the just the trickle down from like facilities and things like that, with like women's, kind of like finding different dates. And so the, men's team trying to find in terms of like when they can, fill in. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the schedules are, will come out and the teams will play. I think for, maybe from a, season ticket holder perspective, families, I don't think it's something that maybe they are really concerned about until probably after Christmas. Once we get into like, month before the season. It just kind of took me a little by surprise. I saw, our friend Zach Capozzi kind of mentioned the tweet. He mentioned like there were 7 or 8 schedules out, and I'm like, it's November, There are teams like, look, a couple years ago, Hopkins put their schedule out in July.
Fed the streets.
Like,
content. Element delivered.
I remember Princeton. Princeton always usually was pretty early, August or so. Obviously, Maryland was, the Maryland Qs, and Notre Dame as well, kind of recently, were some of the ones who, were pretty last to leave the party, I guess, turn their, or last to leave the class, turn their work into the teacher, with their schedule. But And another thing, I guess, a note against, like, Hopkins' schedule is out. And Hopkins' schedule is basically the same as last year, isn't it?
Pretty much.
So, in terms of like scheduling, I don't think, like Hopkins is playing Denver. They're playing at Towson. They're playing Georgetown. They're playing Loyola. They're playing Carolina, Virginia, Cuse. And I don't think there's a single change on there.
We dropped the Georgetown.
No, you're playing Georgetown again.
Sorry, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Hopkins is playing the same exact schedule they did last year. Just with the, flipped,
Denver, Denver at Towson. Yeah, those were all last year.
Yeah,
same teams.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. It's interesting. Maybe we'll have to, do some digging. Maybe see if we can find out. But it's an interesting, it's just an interesting, interesting topic, to kind of dive into.
I'll throw in a second one before we move over, just because it's just hot. Speaking of hot off the presses, congratulations to the PLL expanding to create the women's, I guess the women's PLL. I think this is commercially, like, I think it potentially could be really, it's just like, because women's lacrosse, kind of just the fact that there's so many more, not so many more, but almost double the amount of teams in women's lacrosse as there is in men's lacrosse, that you have a larger pool of people who are playing in collegiately, and probably the other division as well. There's a large number of women's lacrosse players. It feels like the popularity of the women's college game is kind of like kind of springboarding this, because that's kind of, we've always talked about, like, that's the only reason why pro leagues ever worked, is like baseball's a little bit different, but like usually it's like people just love watching these people play in college, and they wanted to continue to see them play professionally, and that's kind of how these professional leagues grew. You kind of see this groundswell of popularity in the women's game, and just seemed like a smart move by the PLL to expand and get an outdoor women's league. I know there have been a couple other leagues for women's. Or am I just thinking of like mistaking it with like? Yeah, wasn't there? I thought I could remember. Maybe I'm thinking
there's been attempts. There's been kind of things similar to, I guess, what you would call. I would say there's been, it's been more, similar to what kind of like the PLO was, I guess, in the first couple of years, and kind of what is it? I would say was what was that old thing that competed with the
There's Athletes United. There is a WPLL.
I know the WPLL was there for Athletes United was kind of like that. What was that thing? Harrison was in it for a couple of years in like the late 2010s, like the Elite X or something.
Oh yeah, it was the travel thing.
Yeah, that's kind of like what Athletes United sort of, that's basically what I kind of say. Athletes United,
The United Women's Lacrosse League. That's the other one I was thinking of. That was kind of in our formative years. It started in 2015 and ceased in 2018.
But and all of those, the thing is, you kind of saw, like, you would either have kind of multiple kind of competing sort of multiple competing groups or interests, and it kind of reminded me of sort of what there was in women's hockey for a couple years there, where you had like a Canadian, you had There was the NWH, the National Women's Hockey League, but then there was a league in Canada, and then you kind of had like 2 split leagues for a time there, and it's we saw this with the PLL and the MLL when like they're split for a couple years. It's like when you have a smaller kind of niche sport like this, like the consolidation is the goal. It's like same as anything. I mean, how many sports conceivably could ever? I mean, I don't even know if the NBA could do 2 split. I don't know if there's enough interest for the NBA to have like for there to be 2 competing basketball leagues in the United States. The only one ever I think you could argue is maybe the NFL. I mean, you had the AFL and the NFL. Like the football. Other than that, like it's just there's not enough. The people want to see. As you said, you mentioned with like it all comes from college, and people want to see the best players play. People want to see the best compete against the best.
Yeah,
they don't want to see. They don't want to see the best compete against others, and then the best over here compete against. Look, I mean, look what happened to golf the last couple of years. Like no one watches the PGA Tour anymore. They watch the majors because that's where the best guys still play. No one watches the PGA Tour, and no one watches LIV because it's not, it's a watered down product. So the women's, a league allied with the PLL that has, like where the PLL has, its resources that it can invest into the women's game, where it has the best talent in the world, Charlotte North, Jamie Ortega, Taylor Cummings, so on and so forth. All of these players, that's the chance to really get something, moving. And that's the chance to really capitalize off of, as you said, the growing interest. I've been to some of the recent women's Final Fours. We've seen on TV the interest that they've gotten. There's definitely a kind of I think a sort of organic interest here. And of course, you mentioned like it's mentioned in the ESPN article that talks about this. Nielsen survey showed interest in the WNBA grew 30% from 2023 to 2024. Interest in the NWSL saw a 17% increase in interest for the same time period. So obviously we know the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, all that with but look, women's lacrosse has its own stars. In recent years, Charlotte North, huge star. Jamie Ortega, like it's got its own big time names, and look, stars are continuing to come. So yeah, I think it's a home run. I think the players all seem on board. And if there's anything to the otherwise, I'll definitely make sure to know that. But the players do seem to be on board. And this gives them, the best possible platform. Whatever anyone wants to say about the PLO product or its kind of branding, whatever it might be, it is without question, not even close, the most organized and kind of, committed organization there's been to a, professional lacrosse league in the United States. And it's, it's got real players behind it. And so if you've got that for a women's league that can build off of what, exactly as you said, say the, organic potential that's been growing in the women's game. We've got new schools coming in, Florida State in a couple of years. Clemson is coming and look immediately making waves. And of course, Boston College, even, the program has been around, but has, over the last 6, 7, 8 years established itself as a dominant power. The Pitt, so other schools as well, that I'm not mentioning. I think it's no question about it. I think it's a great move.
Absolutely. Wish them all the best. I think that they got the playmakers. You're absolutely right. The PLL is, with all due respect to the NLL, what they've done. PLL is like, their experience in being able to produce such a professional looking product, and being able to get the deals that they've been able to kind of get into this American market more to an extent than I think the NLL has. So, again, not to diss the NLL, but I think women's lacrosse league tied in with the men's PLL, it feels like, kind of, I hate this corporate word, but that synergy, because it's kind of all moving in the right direction, getting more teams in. Now you have 2, professional league for men and women. You got the Olympics push that is culminated with the Olympic lacrosse being in the next Olympics. So that definitely feels like the lacrosse is on an upswing and just kind of feels like a natural next evolution. So yeah, shout out to all the future professional women's lacrosse players out there. Sure you're gonna put out a great product.
Yeah, and what you mentioned about the NLL, yeah, I don't want to, by any means, knock, the NLL. It's a different thing. I mean, obviously different game, but also like half the NLL's teams are in Canada.
That's it.
So you're dealing with just a different product. In the indoor game in Canada is just the history and kind of like the indoor game in Canada with the field game here. Fundamental big differences in the game itself, but just the fan bases of the indoor game in Canada compared to like the field game here, it's two different things. And look, the NLL is very successful. I mean, the fans they're able to bring, anyone who's watched the NLL playoffs, or like in a game, they draw great crowds in those arenas. But in terms of outdoor field here, like what the PLL has done is been really successful. And I mean, look, we're 6 years in with the PLL. Like I think it's a good testament, I think, to them that like they just are kind of churning along and doing pretty well, especially with COVID and everything, right in the middle, like right after they started, that they like stability is not a bad thing. By any means.
Was that line from The Wire? In business, nothing you value more than a dependable man. One day is exactly like the next. So, yeah, nothing wrong with reliability and putting out a good product and just continuing that push upwards. But it's just because of those nudes. I just wanted to throw that in there. We got a question from is it a Jake in Maryland?
How you doing?
After the 2024 season, Safe, are you more, less, or neutrally confident on the long-term outlook of Johns Hopkins?
For the record, this is the men's lacrosse team, not the university, not the medical school. just the men's lacrosse team.
I just watched Gifted Hands again. The one about Dr. Vivian Thomas. Fantastic film. Just fantastic film. Most best performance ever. Jake, I just got over that the quarterfinal game against Virginia a few weeks ago. I just emotionally got over it. This is the thing, Jake. I think I've been hard to actually say this point clearly, but I think there is a thing where always say it's like, hey, if you get there a year earlier than you're expected to, or even 2 years earlier, that like it's just such a big impact on the you can see like teams like believing themselves more and more that hey, we'll be able to get that back then next year, but it's kind of the opposite where if you keep missing those windows, the tougher it gets to get. And I don't think Milliman's done by any stretch. I mean, that was a Titanic game against UVA, but I think you're going to need to see a Final Four in the next 2 years. I think before like fans get a little antsy, because like Petro got into the tournament, like Milliman's not gotten blown out in any of the tournament games so far, which is kind of what was the death knell for Petro. Was able to get in there, but even if you got to Elite Eight, sometimes it'd be like bounced out in kind of comical fashion, especially the last few years. So we're not suffering from that. The team as a whole has been exciting. Last year was a great regular season. The year prior also, extremely strong. A lot of people didn't predict, they would do that good 2 years ago, except for some people out there. So yeah, I guess I'm neutral. I don't think Milliman's done anything to like make me feel, we're going to need to change horses in the next year or two. Again, I don't want to sound glib or something like that, but I need playmakers, Jake. I need them. Like I remember, I think it was the end of the year pod last of this season where I was just like, where's our CJ Kirst? Where's that just dynamic playmaker, especially on offense. I feel that like just puts fear in teams, and that's what I said. Like Hopkins was great last year, but like maybe didn't have that one apex attackman that I feel like the top teams have. It's just this is Milliman's team now. He's had this more than 4 years now to get his full recruit. So like eventually I'm feeling like okay now like a year into having all this recruit, maybe this new role as also being kind of like the offensive coordinator and head coach. We'll see something different offensively. So I'm not pessimistic about long-term success. I'm not as hyped as I was like going into 2024 because I thought 2024 was going to be our year, but I guess I'm just neutral. I really like Milliman. I think he's definitely jolted this program back into being a significant, top tier team. He's done the things that I want on that road to getting another title. That beating the top rivals, getting a top seed, winning at least one, winning games in the tournament. He hasn't won the final one, obviously, and he hasn't gotten to the Elite Eight. But last few years of Petro not making the tournament, that his last season, and to where we are now, like we are in a better position. It's not the position I think a lot of Hopkins fans want. Obviously we won titles, but that's why I go neutral. I just like I do need. I feel like need to see a little bit more. Like just the way we lost that UVA game, just like not scoring a goal, like felt like for like the entire second half. Like at times, it was just that's the thing we were talking about. It's just those wasted shots. You have a shot and you get there, and just if you don't kick the door down, like it's going to be more difficult. That's why I look at Princeton. Like Princeton getting into the Final Four in 2022, they haven't gotten there yet. But I think because they got there earlier than anyone expected, like I think that's just had an impact on why they've. I don't want to say cement hold on the Ivy League, but they're the best team in the Ivy League the last 3 years. And I think it's a lot to do with them. It's beating that Yale team that no one really, not know about. A lot of people didn't think that they were going to be able to beat in 2022, and then being able to hold their position. And like I said, gives you confidence being able to do that, and it just keeps the ball rolling. And like I said, not at all like selling Milliman or anything like that, or Hopkins process. But like I said, like I feel like it stunted its growth. Like if we that Notre Dame team in 2023 was pretty different. But like there's a chance in there, the third or fourth quarter. There's a chance where we could have came back, and it was like if we got to the Final Four that year. Like I said, that's that. Oh wow, yeah, you're exceeding expectations, getting there earlier. That's just going to breed confidence. The newcomers, they're going to see like, oh, they already did it. I'm going to be part of something. I'm not that added pressure of I have to get it there. It's more of like, oh, I have to fill in my role to keep us, moving. And it's the only thing I'm just concerned about. Like, kind of, look at Georgetown. We love the Hoyas. Like, love the Hoyas. But a lot of bites of the apple. A lot of bites of the apple these last 5 years from Warren's tenure. And again, you can't like knock what they've done. Got the Big East on lock. Had some great regular seasons, but yeah, a couple missed opportunities. Something that UVA game that we always talk about. They kind of blown out. They kind of saw the difference between to get that level.
Delaware,
but levels to this stuff, as we always say. But
the Delaware game is the one.
Huh? Sorry.
The Delaware game is the one.
Oh,
I mean
that was the season. That was it. That's what I'm saying. And it just compounds. And then when you don't do it, and then the next year you're in that position, that you kind of get a little bit of like, is it happening again? So again, not selling, not buying. A strong hold on Hopkins.
winning. Look, it's the old right. Winning breeds confidence. But the only way you get confidence is by winning. You know, like, you know, it's absolutely a culture thing. And it's not to say that, you know, Georgetown's got, you know, great culture there, self-evidently, but, you know, yeah, I think absolutely 100% what Princeton has, you know, been able to do the last 2 years with, you know, a young team a year ago and the injury team in 2023 is because it's what you expect. It's culture. Why is Maryland able to, was Maryland able to make that run they did this year? It's culture. It's the expectation. You know, it's just the calendar turns and it's like they really.
Hey. Oh my God. Is this a first cameo, or has he made an appearance before?
I think he made one last time.
I was gonna say, not this grand of a scale.
Nobody. But like, you know, Maryland, like they really buy into.
You're wrong. Sell Hopkins. Sell.
What do you think, Spark? Yes? No? Sell? Buy?
Sell. Buy.
Yeah. Like they buy into the idea like this calendar turns to May and it is a new season. Like, okay, none of that matters because they've done it before. And like, you know, and because so many of their, you know, the predecessor teams at Maryland, you know, have been able to, like, look, what's the longest streak of not making a final? Like 1 year, basically. You know, it continues and continues and continues. And I do think it matters. I really do believe not that, you know, not like, you know, it's like losing is losing, and we're like, you know, we always like no moral victories. But I do think there's something to, you know, how far you get off, like we all, like the Final Four threshold for sure. But like, look, no one was beaten Notre Dame this year. Like we can say, like, you know, the Irish were going to, you know, they were going to get to, you know, they were going to get to the Final Four. They were winning the championship. They were just a team on a mission. They like the way, you know, I remember saying, you know, when we did the pod on Saturday after Maryland played, you know, Virginia, I'm like, look, if Notre Dame plays their best game, Maryland ain't winning. You know, like, because that's the kind of team that Notre Dame was. But similar to, you know, like for Maryland, I think, you know, as a team going into 2024, I do think there is confidence off of that run, you know, and I think for Hopkins, like if you had been able to beat Virginia in that game and get over that hump, take down, you know, Lars and, you know, man, that team, beat your rival Maryland in the semifinal, and then play Notre Dame in the final, whatever happens. I think they go into the season feeling like, man, we're a favorite for the championship, even with the losses that they have, you know, like, and, you know, which are they lose a lot of key pieces. They lose, you know, a lot of their scoring. They bring some back. I do think they go into this year feeling like, hey, man, Notre Dame loses a fair bit too. We got past everybody else who maybe, you know, brings back more than us. Like, we're right there. And there's as opposed to this year's team, you know, not even just about ranking, you know, like obviously, look, if they'd be ranked, you know, they'd be ranked higher if they had. But the team mindset, I think they'd go in with a feeling of like, you know, and you could still make a fair argument right now that they have as much of a chance as anybody. But I think they really would feel it. You know, they're like, man, we really, like, we got the only team that beat us was, you know, Notre Dame, you know, and we beat the last. I mean, look, if you beat Maryland and Virginia, you beat like two of the only three teams to win the dang title in the last, you know, 6 or 7 years. So like, I think that really would have, I do think that matters. Same as with Georgetown. Georgetown's whole thing in 2022, no one was asking you to win the title, but we were asking you to lose to Maryland. Like, there is dignity in getting there. You know, it's like, ask Georgetown, you know, Georgetown's in everything with Georgetown and the way we view them is different if they get to Memorial Day and take the defeat to Maryland. Like, Yeah, because you get to Memorial Day. You know, like, yes, you're not going to win that title in 2022, but the expectation was you were the team who's going to get there, and you didn't.
It feels like big time soccer in Europe, where a Champions League final appearance is almost as huge for some teams. It's not as big as winning, but that's something that people always put. Like Champions League appearance or title game appearance, and you're absolutely right. Getting to Memorial Day, it would just give you that for what you're talking about with Hopkins. Like it just gives you belief because like look at Maryland. Like I'm not saying that they weren't going to make the tournament, but after they had lost to Michigan and then that was 3 out of 4 losses. I don't think anybody would have put money on Maryland making it all the way to Memorial Day. They lost the Big Ten tournament semifinals, lost the Hopkins, but being able to put that run together and get to the title game, even if you lost to Notre Dame by 10, like I said, the next year, the guys are saying like, yeah, you're just going to believe Tillman even more so because you're like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing.
And believe in each other. Yeah. Believe in each other. Like that, like this, we're, this is a program that can do it, and that there's guys in the locker room who can do it. That's a different, I mean, that was, I don't know how much, you want to make out of the whole Notre Dame, like bringing in the, import, like guys like Fake and Tevlin from who had won the title, like, they imported, that kind of like culture. I don't know, but like, look, we talked to Coach Wojcik, like, look, he mentioned those guys were there was a tangible impact from their leadership, and like bringing guys like that in, did matter, like, and those are guys who had been around the block and done it. So, yeah, like I think absolutely, there is, it's again, Notre Dame now, like, having won that title in 23, like the Notre Dame team from 23 to 24, it's a very similar roster. Like it's the team is largely the same. Like now they made some, like adding Faison in the midfield, adding Sean Light at defense. Like was the roster better? Yeah, probably. But I think you absolutely could say a big chunk of that like growth from like that 23 team, which was very, very good, to this 24 team, which is going to be talked about forever, is that they carried themselves like, champions. Like they felt like they were the boss, like they walked around. They went from being a team that had that had to carry that losing streak to Virginia 6-7 times, however many it might be, to being like, no, like we're the boss now. Like that's just different. You only get that from being there and winning. So, yeah, I think neutral is fair. Like I don't think they haven't given reason to like sell on them by any means. But the big, in order to buy all in, I do think, yeah, you probably got to see the big time result.
I need a Jeff Teat, Jake. I need a Jeff Teat. I need a CJ Kurst. I need a absolute just straight up playmaker. Absolutely puts fear of God and defenses. But haven't got that yet. But I got faith in Milliman. I think we'll get one of them.
I get it 100%. I mean, I don't think you're wrong that it was clearly what that team was missing. To a degree, 100%. I mean, look, Virginia won because large part. I mean, look, the ride was big. I mean, that was huge. Part of what was it, but also Schellenberger made the plays. Coming in the game, even McCabe Millen. 3 goals, 3 assists, one of the best games he played. Like, yes, Hopkins, like they do need. The offense had problems last year at different points, just trying to make stuff happen. Like it just. At different points, the scripted offense, I guess you could say, and they run a pretty scripted offense. It just kind of hit a wall. that is the moments where you want to turn to a, you know, a guy like you mentioned, Jeff Teat, CJ Kirst, whoever, and be like, all right, make something happen for us. You know, a game breaker, a guy who, like, yeah, like when the scripted offense, when the scripted isn't working, go to the unscripted. And heck, I mean, on that note, you know, interested, like, what does the offense look like with Milliman probably taking much more of a role this year in the offense, you know, coaching the offense with, you know, John Crawley going to High Point, Brian Kelly getting promoted, but like kind of the word seems to be like Milliman's going to be, you know, kind of more, maybe more like when he was at Cornell, kind of like, you know, more hands-on with the offense. What is that, you know, look, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be what his Cornell offense was in 2018. Again, he had Jeff Teat, you know,
like, I want my Jeff Teat.
Like, you get one of those, you know, until you have one of those guys, you know, it's a different deal. But yeah, I think neutral's fair.
Question number 2 from Jake in Maryland. Give me an off the radar team you are buying and selling ahead of 2025. I love this one.
This can be short term or long term. So this could be, you know, long term, maybe you're buying on this, or long term you're selling and looking for maybe, you know, not the, you know, usual kind of fair team here.
Only part I was going to hang me up is off the radar because
so we'll say if you can go non-Ivy Big Ten ACC.
I was going to say, because I was going to make I need you to trust me one more time, Jake, when I put Princeton to win the title. Use my Ethan Hunt voice. So yeah, no Ivy, no Big, no ACC. That's fair.
I'll let you think. Stew on it.
What?
I'm selling Loyola.
Oh yeah.
I was a pretty senior laden experienced team last year with Toomey, and they started the year 2-6, and then they rallied with 5 wins in a row against Lafayette, Lehigh, Bucknell, Holy Cross, and Navy. And then at the end of the year, again, you know, lost to Army and Navy. Just, there's been different points where, you know, in 2023, that was the team, remember, that started really well. That beat, I mean, first, remember, they beat Maryland and Hopkins at, you know, Ridley. Started 4-1, and then they lost. You know, at one point, you know, overall, you know, they lost 5 of their last 8 games. So I'm always so hesitant to like fully give. I don't want to give up's the right word, but like to sell really, you know, because it's Toomey and that staff, and they just all, you know, they're just so great at getting the most out of, you know, what they have, and they've got that track record. I'll never forget that kind of 21, you know, kind of run where, I mean, they were so close to making the Final Four and beating that, you know, heralded Duke team. But so much the last couple of years has just been un-Loyola-like. You know, starting against, you know, a bad start to the year like that just sort of took themselves out of it from the jump. A great start in 2023, but then a bad finish. Defense, summer 2023 was rough, and then last year, a Loyola team that, you know, if you could, you know, I mean, so many seniors on that roster. Usually, you know, you give that kind of group a lot of seniors and experience, that portended good things. I don't know. It just, now we're into a different time now. I do think it's absolutely, like, for sure, okay, of that team, that program playing the schedule they usually do, with some of the Patriot League's, you know, restrictions, with, you know, the transfer portal and things like that. I 100% think that was not a time period conducive to success for Loyola. I don't think there's any question about that. I think it was always going to be challenging for them. But to me, the more concerning is, like, just even the results within the Patriot League. The Patriot League has caught up to them. Like Army has improved the talent level of that roster and gotten up there. BU is just there every year. We kind of have knocked the Patriot League for not being able to capitalize kind of maybe on some momentum chances, but like if you look at compared to 2019, look at that Loyola squad, just look at the Patriot League overall and kind of look at like where these programs are at. Like, are they kind of like, are they in better places now than they were then? Lafayette 2019 compared to 2024. I think Lafayette's in a better spot now than they were, 100% in a better spot now than they were 5 years ago. Colgate last year, Colgate best season last year in a while, in a long time. BU has solidified themselves 100%. Navy's kind of Navy, but I think you can maybe argue marginally kind of better than sort of that trail end of the Soul era. Lehigh, I think, was scuttered. We got to see long term, but even still, year one, no drop off. And considering what they had to replace talent wise, they got to the tournament. Basically, the only programs in the Patriot League, I think, the only one I think you could argue that's in worse shape is probably Bucknell. Holy Cross, unfortunately, is just Reppert walked into a bad situation. He hasn't been able to get any momentum going. Bucknell is like the only one I think you could argue that's really in a both sides. So you've got a conference that I think is been kind of climbing up to them, and they've been kind of trailing off, and like that's just a tough. Once you kind of get in that like crabs in a bucket, it's like once you get in the bucket, man, like it's hard to get out of it. So I'm selling Loyola. There's not me saying that I don't think they're like too many of them like will not be able to get back. If you told me they made the NCAA tournament this year, I wouldn't be shocked or anything. I just kind of wonder if, I think the era of, kind of Loyola we became accustomed to for a long time, if maybe that just kind of died with Pat. And this is now more, where they're at least for the foreseeable, unless maybe, they can find themselves until maybe they, you're never going to find another Pat Spencer, but, if they can maybe, do what kind of Loyola did, and, they were always kind of very good at, I know Quint's always kind of pointed out, like early recruiting was, kind of good for schools like that, like that could kind of like go after guys who like other programs, who like filled up their classes super early, and they could kind of find guys in like their junior year, who kind of like peaked and then, and they're not able to do this much anymore.
Like Pat.
Yeah, it's not like, and that's the thing with Pat. It was like the discussion with Pat often got kind of blurred because, like, look, it ain't like Pat was like a 3-star recruit. Like he was like a top 10 guy in his class, but he was one of those guys who kind of came on like he broke late, Yeah. And Loyola got
that was the early recruiting. That was the early recruiting year.
Yes.
So he was able to sneak through.
Exactly, like Pat, Ryan McNulty, like those guys. Like unless they can kind of maybe find some guys like that again, or maybe find just a big time recruit. And look, they've got some talented guys there. I know that they, Minikis, has shown some flash. He'll be a junior. So other guys they kind of like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm selling. I don't, I don't feel like a imminent kind of like return to glory is on the horizon. That's not to say that they can't win the Patriot League and make the tournament, but I think if they do, it will be as a Patriot League champion type team, not a home game, kind of like top 5, 6, 7 team in the country. Having said that, I'm sure I will watch them, we'll watch them do something to Maryland and Hopkins and Ridley, in February. Now that I've put this out into the universe.
Jake, I'm selling the Blue Devils.
I just say no Big Ten ACC Ivy?
Oh, but for selling, I thought we could sell whoever.
Both ways.
Oh, okay.
How about this? I did sell, so you do give me one you're buying.
Bye. Okay. I mean, like, we just talked about them. I was just like, I'm buying the Hoyas. I'm doing it. I need you to trust me one more time, one last time, Jake. To quote Ethan Hunt.
I love how I told you don't do Ivy Big Ten, and you immediately did the
right underneath it. Like Price is right, like 101. Please, you bet 100. Yeah, I mean that's the one that feels like been kind of knocking. Last year, they lost a pretty young team, but still made a tournament. Had that nice regular season win against Notre Dame. The only loss that the Irish suffered last year. Yeah, I mean, I'm buying them. Yeah, I'm buying them. I think they got a good amount of returners. They got good young goalie. And I just think like I think a lot of the teams at the top, the top three, maybe not so much like Cornell and Princeton, but a lot of the teams that kind of been the standard bearers they're losing significant amount. Duke's losing about like 70% of their scoring. Virginia's like a little bit over half. Maryland's a little bit over half. I think Maryland losing Luke is also kind of going to be big, probably maybe the biggest factor for the Terps. I think Cuse brings a good amount back, so like they'll be in the hunt there. But I think if there was a somewhat of an open field for the Hoyas to like finally break through and get that Final Four, the long shot, yeah, I'm going with Georgetown.
All right. Next one comes from a longtime caller, first time question asker, Ryan from Long Island. Says he's doing some school stuff this evening. But his visit to MetLife Stadium and paying real American dollars to watch the Jets actually win gives him memories of the first big city classic. His question is, what regular season event would he like to see be brought back? Could be IL events, weekend tournaments, neutral site things, the random St. John's game at Citi Field, which I actually wasn't aware of. Anything.
I mean, the IL or these special event style regular season games, and Notre Dame and Maryland are doing one right in Texas this
Georgia.
year. I'm sorry?
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah,
Georgia. I love those. Like, we're big of like, hey, when it comes to the big time events, let's just keep it towards a hotbed. But these type of special event type.
Yeah, regular season you can do. Regular season have that.
We still love those Maryland West Coast games on YouTube in California. Like that's where I think you can really experiment. If these top tier teams are willing to like sacrifice a home game and can eat the travel costs, like that's really like how you can really market it. Because like when you have like the quarters and a non-traditional, you're always kind of captive to like what teams are going to make it to those games. So that will impact how many people attend and the fanfare around it. But it's a highly anticipated regular season game with two top 10 teams. That's something people can bank on. Okay, that's coming into Denver. Denver has their own great team, but a non-traditional hotbed city, Salt Lake, parts of Southern California, Georgia, maybe they can do something in Texas, in places where there are like if people interested in lacrosse, maybe a growing high school youth population, and this type of game can people can pin to their calendars like, oh great, 6 months from now they're gonna Hopkins and if Hopkins in Maryland took it on the road, that may get some numbers some other places. But yeah, just like marquee teams that are willing to sacrifice a home game and eat the travel cost to a non-traditional hotbed. I love those things. The IL does it, or some other Crown City Classic. Shout out to them and what they're doing down there. Those type of the Notre Dame Cornell game on the island. Those type of things
yeah.
were all those things were like great ideas, and I love seeing those. So yeah, if there's a dedicated West Coast version of the Crown lacrosse classic that they have in North Carolina, that would be great. And I think that would help to increase interest out there and just get a different type of fan to be able to experience it live, because that's what you and I always talk about, is like that's the thing people probably really probably understand, but like you see how severe it is in person. It's just like the speed of the game, the hitting, this like it's just
back and forth.
You can understand what's going on and how fast these guys are via TV. But when you're in these like lacrosse stadiums where you can kind of sit really close, and even on near the track by the fence, you can just really see just like how fast these are and how vicious of a game it is, violent. So that's what just give people outside of the traditional hotbeds or someone who's like me, I can just jump on a train, go to Princeton in like 20 minutes, and I can see the Tigers play Maryland. But the fans in other parts of the country where lacrosse is growing, but they don't get that chance. So I love that type of idea. And like I said, if you can get a set date that people can focus on, promoters can like advertise and get a crowd and interested. I always love those things, and I would love to see them come back.
I think those things are good. I mean, what the IL did, I think they had it, right in a sense is, and this is the longer conversation another time. Look, the idea of growing the game, like, think about what that literally means, growing the game. You grow the game everywhere. Lacrosse is not the biggest sport in Maryland, or in New York, or in Philadelphia,
or New Jersey,
New Jersey. It's like it's not the second or third biggest sport there either. So like you can grow the sport. Like we call them like hotbeds. Like it's a hotbed for lacrosse. It doesn't mean it's a hotbed. Like you can grow the sport there too.
This is an evergreen topic.
Yes. I mean, like again, like
no, it's so right though, and it needs to be said. But there's a lot of growth left to do still in the hotbeds.
Exactly. And honestly, you could argue that's where you should do the growth, because that's where you have the potential the most.
Yeah.
Like you're like, because you have the high, like you have like the sticks and the boots on the ground coaches who are here and willing to do things in these areas, and you have how many high schools in the state of Maryland that offer lacrosse, and how many high schools in Philadelphia and New York and so on and so forth. And so like as much as you can connecting the high school to the college in in those areas. If I remember when I think Virginia kind of had that connection with the inner city program in Harlem. It's like something like that in areas in these hotbeds. There are areas in these hotbeds where maybe that don't lacrosse isn't necessarily maybe offered. Like maybe a school where lacrosse isn't offered in these things, but like where you can where you have coaches who can go there and set up a program, where you can reach out to a newer community, and establish, and build lacrosse. So that's where I think, you can do something like I've always been a fan of this, because I think you can really, you can set a date for it, and you can make it something like you mentioned, think of like, I have a date for it, and you can make it something that people can kind of, mark their calendar for. And maybe if you can do that, you can get the high schools, in the middle, the youth programs involved more. It's like, the Philly programs kind of do it. They kind of all schedule their games around each other at similar times. Why not just do it all one day? Why not just pick, if you can book, whatever they call it, Subaru, TPL, whatever, where the Philadelphia Union play, and you can do Penn, Penn and St. Joe's, or Villanova, and Drexel, or heck, maybe you can do a 3-day week thing. You can do Friday, Sunday, women can play Saturday, something like that. That'd be a big deal in that area. Now part of this is also, it probably would require flexibility of the schedule, teams moving things around. You probably would want a warmer, a day for that, maybe in March. But I think here, in Baltimore, like, if you could get Hopkins and Navy, Maryland and Loyola, get Towson, UMBC involved. I mean, there's so many programs that you can get involved here. And if you play it at, you could play it at Homewoods, argue, you do that. But if heck, honestly, you wait, something like you could, with the in Maryland, I think you could do something like what they do with basketball, the Philadelphia Big Five. Get all of them located, but shift the location every year. 1 year we played at Hopkins, 1 year we played at Towson, 1 year we played at Loyola, 1 year we played at Maryland. And just make it a day, something like that. Listen, this isn't me saying it as like this needs to happen. Like I'm not like I'm fully aware of the challenges it presents. But like if we're treating as like what do I think is something that could be cool and has meaningful, like could be pretty meaningful if you can get youth programs, things like that involved. I do think that's something that is good because I do love I got nothing to if schools want to, as you said, trade on a home date where it's probably gonna be pretty cold and go to Georgia or go to California, absolutely. But I think it's like and again that's another conversation. The idea of grow the game is like that doesn't just mean let's go to Georgia and play. It's like we can do it here too, and we can do it especially in different communities that maybe haven't been exposed to the game as much. But yeah, that'd be my kind of thing. I think Isle did have it right, like where they we're gonna play it in Baltimore, with when they did the Kanaka Minolta, we're gonna have Hopkins, play in it, and we're gonna have they had Virginia,
Princeton.
Yeah, I mean the Face-Off Classic, when it was really successful. I mean the first one they had Hopkins, Princeton, Virginia, Syracuse played in Baltimore, perfect. I mean that was the first couple of years of it. And then they got Maryland involved, and they did Maryland, Duke, Princeton, Hopkins, they put Loyola, and they're like, I mean, so Ryan obviously mentioned the Big City Classic. The first one was hugely successful. The most successful one was honestly the 2012 one. They got Duke, Syracuse, and in New Jersey. Yeah, I mean Duke's obviously got in that area. Even 2010 they had Virginia, Carolina, Syracuse, Princeton. So played in that area, get the teams involved. But so I think those things were cool. Okay, Ryan sent me the link. City Field to host Metropolitan Lacrosse Classic. This was 2013. Michigan played Colgate, and Holy Cross played Navy. Early 2010s is just a wild time with lacrosse. feels like a different feels like just feels like the Old West. There was a ESPN had a college lacrosse game of the week on Wednesday nights. It's just a different time.
It's just a different era, yeah. All right, next one. Did you give the listener's
This came
name?
From Drew Brennan, 1 Foot Down. He asked us to rank the best, basically units, best going into 2025. So best team units, best midfield, best attack, best defense, and also what teams would be the runner-up on our first choices in that.
All right, midfield. Because we're gonna include short stick defensemen and stuff like that because
face off. Yeah, good.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Notre Dame.
I think you're right on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Will Lynch come back at face off. I feel like they still have Ben Ramsey at short stick defenseman. They still have
Bazon,
long stick defenseman. Yeah. I feel like Notre Dame, and they seem to just have a thing going on, especially a couple of years of just really strong midfield. So program strength, returning players. I'm going to go with Notre Dame for my midfield.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think when you count for the Lynch is back unit before counting to face off the whole unit. That's a big one. Maybe you can include short stick. Even like on the defense side, but if I think face off for sure, you got to include in like a midfield group. Even just on offense though, Faison and McLean are two All-American type guys. And you just look at kind of like the depth, of it. Busenkill might play attack for him. But like Angrick, another guy there, Jalen Seymour kind of played some incoming commits, like, guys you're bringing in like Matthew Jeffrey, 5-star, who could be a stud. So they feel, like they've got just the most well-rounded group, and as you said, like consistently they've fielded just deep midfields over the last couple of years. Cuse, I think potentially if we're just kind of focusing on offense, Finn Thompson, Michael Leo, those are two guys really productive point scorers. On that line, they obviously lose. I think Sam English is back as well. I want to say for 2025, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But even Stevens is gone, which is a tough one. I think English is gone. But even without it, you've got the two returning guys who are going to feature on that. If you got Luke Roa, who scored 20 goals. English is back. They got English back. So there you go. It's like you got, on that, like just on from the offensive side for Q's, you've got, a 38-point score, 37, 34, two guys who put up 20 points and 10 plus assists, or, 20 plus goals and 10 plus assists. So from an offensive perspective, Syracuse is pretty well rounded there. I think if you want to say, I think, if you want to include like short stick teams, things like that, you can look their direction. Army might have the best midi in the country in Evan Plunkett, but they lose guys like Jacob Moore and Bailey O'Connor, Ryan Sposito. So those are tough losses. If you want to throw in face-off, though, with that, they bring back Will Coletti. So that is a pretty good, move. Maryland should kind of be interesting. They maybe run Urksa out of the box. They were doing that at the end of the year. I think Spanos will stay to attack. Urksa run out of the box. He put up good numbers. They got a lot of different guys they can play. And I know that they like their kind of face-off group still. But yeah, I think Notre Dame's the incumbent there. I think Cuse is a decent kind of shout as far as from an offensive perspective as well. The unit that'll be, pretty darn strong.
Tack?
Big Red.
Big Red. I'm right with you. Another Ivy team. I'm going with Princeton. I think we're 4 or 5 in our too early rankings, but Princeton essentially only losing like less than 10% of their total scoring. Definitely bringing back big hitters. I think Cabrera is going to have potentially a big sophomore leap. Offensively, they should just be super potent. And if I'm going for attack, I think we're going to go with Princeton.
Yeah, I mean, Cornell brings back all 3 of their starting attackmen and their 4th attackman in Ryan Goldstein, and they have CJ Kirst. A 5th-year senior and 6th-year senior and Michael Long. How's that going? Been around forever. 60 points, Kirst. I mean, he's CJ Kirst. He might be the favorite for the Tewaaraton. Willem Firth as a freshman had 34 points. Ryan Goldstein as a freshman had 33 points. AJ Nicolas, freshman, had, he chipped in as well. I think Cornell. I think they're the answer. Princeton's a good bet. Yeah, I mean, with Kirst, I mean, that's, That's what I lean. Yale, you can't. I mean, if they get Leo Johnson back and Chris Linesman, those are two, big time hitters. They lose Brandow, obviously. But I mean, they still got guys. Dave Anderson, as a kind of finisher, he could fit in with them. He scored 36 goals. So the Ivy's going to have a lot of big time attack units. Notre Dame, I mean, look, Pat Cav obviously gone, but you got Chris Cav, you got Jake Taylor. Do they throw, who they kind of throw in, maybe Booze and Kill, and they're like, and they got, some big time guys coming in. So, I think I would go Cornell for sure, my number one, but there's other teams, kind of look kind of decently poised in that regard.
Defense. I'm going Notre Dame here too. I mean, thought maybe you could sneak in face off as kind of a defensive position as well here. So, I think they're, going to be well served with having Lynch there. I think you could make a case they have the best returning defenseman, besides for maybe AJ Pilati, because
Light.
Sorry.
No, I was saying Light. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with Light, exactly, because our boy Ajax is gone. I think Brendan Lavelle doesn't have any more time at Penn. Scott Smith is gone. They were all like first.
No,
team
Scott Smith's back.
So I guess Smith is the other top defenseman returning.
I would say if you're going from last year. Smith, Light, and
AJ
Pilot, pretty good. Michael Bath of Princeton, I like him. I know people. Van Buren's kind of too up and. Van Buren came on last year, but no, I think you could. Yeah, I think you're absolutely. Yeah, you could argue Lights. Yeah, could be the best. Yeah, individual defender. Yeah.
I mean, the big hole being left in both leadership and performance with Entenmann out of goal for Notre Dame, but I really think they kind of just they got something going over there. The potential of a three-peat. I just think they're going to be well positioned to at least have pretty strong defense. I kind of maybe thought a little bit of Georgetown just because I think Warren may be able to put something together. I like their freshman goalie and more. They got the the freshman Ty Banks that's also got honorable mention. And just the culture that Warren has down there, I think he can put together a good defense. But yeah, I think Notre Dame for me is my top choice as the best defense coming into the year.
I think Notre Dame is a good shout. Safe. I like your Jays.
I was just gonna say I mistook Smith for a grad student, but I was like, yeah, dude, like him come back.
You get Scott Smith back. You get Kilrain second year. I think a big one is with Notre Dame. I mean, look. I'm not going to pretend I don't think Notre Dame will wind up having a good goalie, but you're still replacing Entenmann. You kind of have a question mark right there. Hopkins going to the portal and getting Luke Stout from Loyola. Replacing Chase Yearling will be tough, but Luke Stout, the name fits. What he did for Grant and a experienced goalie. I think he can have I don't know if he'll have as great of an effect as Yearling did. By all accounts, Yearling was just a terrific leader. And really, he made some. That game he played against Virginia. I was thinking about that game the other day. He played incredible against Virginia. It was unbelievable. But I think Luke Stout's a great pickup. I like some of the pieces they got as well at kind of the at long stick midi. Carson Brown, some of those other guys. So I think they could be a mean unit. Also, you reminisce Ohio State.
Listen,
they were terrific.
I didn't know if we could start. It was too early.
I mean, they were,
You knew if you didn't put that Big Ten caveat, Ohio State was going to be my long shot for 2025 to buy.
Like listen, I mean, they're just defensively strictly. If you want to look at it, that group was tremendous. And it feels like they've got. I mean, you got Van Buren, Langermeyer, guys who've been around the block. And it feels like they've got the big guy in goal. It feels like they've got kind of the culture back there, like they've got their, they know who they are, again, like I think that, was something that I feel kind of lost there for a minute, especially defensively, but, so yeah, I mean, you got to kind of, they're certainly a team to kind of look out for, but I don't know if I have an obvious pick here, but I think Notre Dame, Hopkins, Georgetown, Ohio State, I think these are all definitely teams. I think Maryland will be very, losing Ajax is very tough, but Canfield, I think back, Colin Burlace is a terrific defender. Bringing in Peter Lake, true freshman, who looks like he should be a real stud. At Loyola Blakefield. I think that my one of the other cats is dragging one of his toys by himself. I think Maryland will be very strong defensively as well. They brought in some short experience, so I think they'll be in that mix as well. But I think it'll be a defense. I think it'll be a defensive year. I think if your defense is these teams who have the defense, I think Notre Dame, Maryland, Hampshire, I think it's at least worth betting on them as high floor teams. You look, how many teams are graduating just like generational attackmen?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the ACC. I mean, you're losing Schellenberger, O'Neal, Pat Cav. Hopkins is obviously. I mean, they bring back some key pieces, guys, McLendez and Collison, but they lose Angelus. They lose Degnon. I mean, just true soldiers for the program. Maryland loses kind of like experienced production. Again, a guy like a Maltz who's been just did everything. Always was there. So I think if a team, and again, that's what like a Notre Dame, having Lynch, like if you're able to, consistency, I think will probably be strong next year. I think defense plays into that, faceoff plays into that, goalie, not turning the ball over, like those things I think will probably be really valuable next year. But then again, now we say that the Ivy League looks like with some of that offensive talent, it probably will exist in its own world and be, 18, 17. I mean, there's still plenty of talent there, what Princeton's got, and Yale's down back, and but even Yale loses Brandoff, so yeah.
Jake, I think that's it for the questions for this round, but always a good time. Only other news I can think of from this week, NCAA championship odds are up on DraftKings. So that's an official sign of the season's right around the corner. Notre Dame leads it, at least from where I'm viewing it, at plus 425. The Syracuse fan base has dragged them to the second best odds at plus 550. UVA plus 800, Cornell plus 900. Princeton's probably in here, but I don't see them because I'm in Jersey. But the next four are Maryland at plus 1,000, Duke plus 1,000, Hopkins at plus 1,100, and Yale at plus 1,600. And like I said, I think Chris may have said that Princeton was like plus 950 or something.
Chris said Princeton was plus 900.
900, that's it. So tied for the fourth best odds with Cornell, which kind of fits, given the rankings and where we're expecting the Tigers to come in this year.
There's nothing I would look at and say is too. Nothing like last year, like what was it? BU had the crazy odds.
You had 1,500. So yeah, it's like better than
Everything this year.
two teams that made the Elite Eight and one that made the Final Four.
Everything this year looks. There's nothing that looks like pops off the page with value. I would say, like Georgetown plus 3,000. I mean, like yeah. I mean, look, they yeah. Maryland plus 1,000, Duke plus 1,000, Hopkins plus 1,100. I mean, I would say there's not a lot of value on the board right now. Honestly.
But
it's fun, safe.
I'm just thinking we'll just find 250 and just put it on Notre Dame. Just bet on history. But yeah, it's great. Great to be back on the mic, Jake. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or.
Oh, go Commanders! Left hand up.
I was gonna say, I think you guys can score a touchdown. 7-0. All right.
Gonna get out of here now.
Hopefully, the Eagles come make a comeback. But yeah, for all of us here, thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to another fun season. Probably get a couple more in before the end of the year. But yeah, probably, like I said, probably the last one for a little while on Patreon, but you'll find us everywhere else you find your podcast, and definitely look for us on YouTube.
If it's a video.
But yeah, from all of us, thanks so much for listening. Happy Thanksgiving if we don't get back on the mics before that. But yeah, great time, Jake. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely, brother. Stay hydrated, folks. Back lunch for president.